Hey time travelers, today's question: why is it that shame really doesn't work? Let's dig in and find out. Hey everybody, my name is Jesse. I'm an NAAP certified life coach. Welcome to my Mindful Monday series where I help individuals leverage the power of their brain. Join me in finding your superpower. Hey everybody, today's question digs into why shame really ends up being counterproductive, at least in my opinion, and according to research. First off, I'm going to mention a resource that I'm heavily basing this discussion off of. Her name is Brené Brown. She is a shame researcher. And anyone who's interested, I highly recommend listening to or reading a book of hers called The Power of Vulnerability. So for those who are unfamiliar with shame and why it is so problematic, shame is in internalizing, personalizing with, and identifying with, and valuing yourself based off of the outcome of a circumstance. For example, if you're looking at a situation where you're showing up late to a business presentation or to a job, and you're recognizing that as part of who you are. Oh, I'm just late all the time. It's not something I have control of. It's just part of who I am. That's shame. That is you over-identifying with an outcome. And here's the thing. I am always late. I am a late person. I'm a late personality. That's where it becomes a problem because you start identifying with it. And as you identify with it, what ends up happening is it becomes more a part of who you are. It becomes an intrinsic identity you've connected with. Why does this matter? Well, in the case of being late, it's more likely that you're going to perpetuate or continue that behavior because you've made it part of who you are. You've made it part of how you identify. So, if that's part of who you are, what are you going to do about it? If it's an innate identity, there's nothing you can do about it. However, if you recognize that it is something that I have found a tendency to do, you can say, that's something I used to do. I used to be late frequently. And you can downplay it, and your subconscious will recognize a shift. You are trying to make a change. Now, another part of this is downgrading shame to guilt. Guilt is healthy and adaptive. So I'm going to use Brené Brown's phrasing with this. Guilt is flexible, adaptive. It can adjust to circumstance. Shame is brittle. It is inflexible. It is a point of judgment. And I know she quoted in the book from another author, I can't remember his name right off the top of my head. A addict needs shame just like a thirsty man needs salt water. Again, an addict needs shame just like a thirsty man needs salt water. The benefit of shame is momentary. The benefit to a thirsty man of salt water is momentary, but it ultimately destroys the individual. Shame simply drives the addictive behavior deeper. It is not a long-term solution. It is a detriment. What ends up happening is the shame-filled man will go back to what gives him comfort, which is almost always his primary addiction. If you're dealing with some form of addiction, whether that is pornography, whether that is being late, whether that is self-judgment, these things are damaging and will inevitably create a cyclic pattern. There is no identifiable point when shame leads to addiction or addiction leads to shame. They cannot find a tipping point. One is never found without the other. So what are you going to choose? Are you going to choose to identify that something happened? You're going to recognize that an instance of guilt does not need shame to validate it? Or are you going to lean into shame and perpetuate your behaviors? Are you going to continue to beat yourself up over the circumstance? I know I'm choosing to stop. I'm choosing to recognize guilt and be able to say that I didn't mean that outcome to occur. What can I do in the future to change it? Or am I going to say I'm a horrible, terrible person and lean into shame? I'm done with that behavior. So I'm going to stop hiding. I'm going to stop leaning into shame. And that's another thing. Shame almost always leads to a hiding behavior. What are you going to choose? Share with me in the comments. Thanks for joining me today. Now, if you think I've gone off the deep end and I'm off the rails, call me out. Let's have a discussion about it. Let's see if we have an opportunity to grow or learn from each other. Otherwise, if you just need some help implementing this, reach out. I'm here for you. I'd love to help. I'd love to give you a hand. Or who do you know who could get value from this video? I invite you to share it with them. Now, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on notifications on future uploads and videos. And let's be the change that we want to see in the world. Join me. One person at a time, let's watch this avalanche begin.